I was just on social media and I saw a video of Michaela Peterson saying that the carnivore diet helped her with PTSD thoughts. And she said hers are at bay. And I just thought, I wonder if there's something to this. I have got to try this because nothing else is working. I mean, nothing. I will get stuck replaying that in my mind for several days. I will stay in that same mood for several days, very depressed. The ketamine did not take that away. The diet took that away. This is the first time I can ever remember feeling normal. I feel like this is life and death information.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Well, welcome back to me. I've been out for a couple of days. So anyway, we have a guest today. Is it Leigh Ann? You'll have to correct me. Let me unmute you to give you a chance to answer that question. And I need to change the view here real quick. Well, welcome and thank you. And tell me, how do you pronounce your name?
It's Leigh Ann.
Leigh Ann. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Where are you located, by the way?
Florida.
Oh, nice. What part?
Yes, Palmetto.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, right by I'm drawing a blank, right by Tampa.
Okay, by Tampa. Okay, nice. Well, I was up in Montana. It was quite cold there, so very different.
Yes, it's warm here.
Very different temperature wise. So I'm jealous. Okay, well, thank you for doing this, and I'm interested to hear what your story. I saw a little bit about it, but I'd love to hear the details. So if you don't mind, just kind of give us a little bit of your background, and we'll kind of get into it.
Absolutely, it's really an honor and absolute privilege to be here and meet you. I want to thank you for your work and your service, by the way.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I feel my story will connect with those suffering in one or more of the ways that I have. I hope to reach people that may not even know that they're suffering, because terrifying to admit, I didn't even realize how bad I was suffering. I understand mental health, and I live the ebbs and flows of being a mother of four as well. I struggle PTSD and eating disorder and addiction, which I now understand all go hand in hand. I am a year into recovery now. I had blood work done when I was 6 months into sobriety, and then again 2 months after I started the carnivore diet. So that was last week, really. Insulin resistance and the MTHFR mutation were revealed to me on social media. I have been diagnosed hyperglycemic in the past, but I do not recall any of my treating doctors or nurses saying there was a need for further medical assistance or follow-up on this. This is what I've been dealing with alongside PTSD. Insulin resistance is a metabolic issue. Historically, my metabolic health has always been deficient or really low. My parents actually met in a mental health facility. They had me like not long after that. The treatment now is not trauma informed or even effective. 96% of people that are willing and able to go to rehab don't come out. I mean, they relapse. They don't come out on the other side. I cannot imagine the lack of help available to my parents during a time when virtually no one even spoke of mental health. My father didn't survive his fight with mental health and passed from arrhythmia when he was 34 years old in his sleep. Heart issues stem from basically the inability to cope. It's stuck in your nervous system. I was 9 at the time, and my 6-year-old sister actually found him deceased. My mom now is about a year into her healing journey, as she also used alcohol to cope. When a parent struggles in this way, it causes an emotional disconnect. And survivors of childhood trauma often take on different roles in their families. I took caretaker on. My brain changed and geared for survival. A silent war started in my body and I was unaware of it. Trauma doesn't go away and we don't move on from it. We learn to make space for it in our body. My message is that it's entirely possible to thrive because of this. But we have to understand that trauma disrupts the psychological body. The gut biome, the heart neural pathways, the vagus nerve, liver, overall mental health. I don't blame anyone. I'm not mad at the doctors personally. However, I do feel they stuck to their realm. I am certain that at least one of the plethora of doctors I saw over the course of 24 consecutive years knew the term childhood trauma. Yet the very first time I heard of it was last year when I was 37 on social media. That was life and death information for me. I didn't understand there were other forms of medical care because no one ever told me. And even if someone had told me, that information is so censored. I was really entirely too busy just trying to survive anyways. Now, my eating disorder started when I was 15. I quit basketball because I moved in high school. And what I didn't realize was just how much of a release basketball was providing for me. I began exercising 4 hours a day in high school and restricting meat. Living in hypervigilance, I strive for complete perfectionism or self-destruction. I am very motivated, but it's often been misunderstood because I have rapid fire thoughts that come to me and I'm trying to put out the biggest fire first. So what seemingly isn't as important at the time goes on the back burner. I forget to revisit because of the new spitfire thoughts coming. Disassociation started and I found it really hard to be around other people unless I felt a certain way inside, like a certain type of confidence. When I'm in public and not on the diet even now, like this podcast wouldn't be possible because the idea of feeling observed, watched, and noticed is just entirely too overwhelming for me. Secrecy, isolation, anonymity, and functional invisibility, as Dr. Glenn Doyle states, is the only safety I felt struggling PTSD. I had to have a blood transfusion at 19 years old, 2 pints of blood. My hemoglobin level was a 4. Now, a healthy child should at least be a 12. My mental health became so bad. I was having classified suicidal thoughts, even though I was frighteningly unaware of it at the time. The thoughts included, I don't want to be here, not sure why I was born, like just straight up not having a good time here in my human experience. I stopped bathing, brushing my teeth. Like this is very serious. I was fighting for my life and seeking medical help continuously. A new medication was always prescribed. I felt defeated. I thought I exhausted all avenues. And then I fell into alcoholism at 21 years old as a way to soothe the overwhelming sadness and the negative racing thoughts. It really seemed to slow the thoughts down and alleviate the pain. I stopped exercising. I gained a ton of weight. And then I started purging along with the heavy drinking. I am 5'6". My lowest weight was 100 pounds and my highest was about 200 pounds. I now understand this made insulin resistance so much worse. I hit my bottom. This has almost taken my life several times now. Each time I truly got a little closer to death. I am a very motivated, loving mother of 4 beautiful kids. And I realized I deserved better because my kids deserved better. I knew what I was acting out was not how I truly felt on the inside. Dr. Glenn Doyle states, we are not ourselves when we're triggered. We become who we think we need to be in order to survive. When we are constantly triggered, our identity can slip away. Our personality and our identity are constantly being hijacked by fight or flight mode. It was crucial I figure out what was going on. And I checked myself into rehab December of 2021. I relapsed and entered again February of 2022, and I've been sober since. At 5 months sober, I was still really struggling. Ketamine infusions were suggested to me. It really seemed to have built new synapses between the neurons in my brain that clearly entered survival mode at a young age. Fight or flight trauma response essentially freezes the prefrontal cortex in the brain. The basic activity of this region is considered to be the orchestration of thoughts and actions in accordance with internal goals. Many have indicated a link between a person's will to live, personality, and functions of the prefrontal cortex. Ketamine didn't take away the racing negative thoughts, though, nor the overwhelming sadness. I was still really struggling, especially around the time of my menstrual cycle. It did remove the obsessive alcohol thoughts and dreams, though. It was the antidote to my addict brain. I was suddenly able to advocate for myself, so I began really researching and writing down what my body was experiencing. After the ketamine, I started researching how my body was different in relation to alcohol, because I was sold the narrative that it was genetic. However, there is no scientific evidence to support that theory. What I did find is that my body metabolizes alcohol differently. It has always been an underlying metabolic insulin resistance issue, not just with alcohol, with every single thing I was ingesting. At 6 months into sobriety, I had my blood panel drawn again. When I first had it drawn, I was still deficient in iron, B12, D3, creatine, B6. Everything was, my whole metabolic health was either deficient or low. When I had my results drawn again in August, they all improved, all of them. I always struggled with dehydration as well. When I ingest sugar or caffeine, my body mimics a panic attack, and I am in fight or flight followed by dissociation. And dissociation is scary. I've lost blocks of time. I began really researching childhood trauma, and I found the carnivore diet via Michaela Peterson Fuller, as she stated that she struggles PTSD. And I immediately thought there had to be something to this. As a millennial, I was sold on the vegan diet, and I have been eliminating meat thus far, especially red meat. And I'm not quite sure why. It has been long known that biological, psychological, and social factors play a role in mental health. Diet is biological. The carnivore diet actually tackles nutrient deficiencies that exacerbate mental health issues. Basically, everything that I've been deficient in: meat, salt, and water. Plant protein is not the same as animal protein. Plant proteins are less absorbable. The thoughts, the memories, and the overwhelming sadness finally subsided after day 22 on the diet. Even during my menstrual cycle, this is huge. The restrictive eating thoughts are gone. I used to limit what I ate, at what times I ate, and that made me extremely irritable. I did that because I felt bloated after the way I was eating, and I didn't like the way pants felt on my stomach. I also now have tons of energy for my 4 kids. I run in the morning and I lift weights. The bulging stomach I was worried about is now visible muscle. I feel stronger emotionally, physically, and mentally than ever before. My body has literally been rejecting anything not meant for the human body. My body has always been doing exactly what I needed it to be doing, returning to homeostasis. I went to AA for several months to see if there was healing there for me, and I never once shared my story. This was due to the still overwhelming thoughts and social anxiety. Once those were lifted on this diet, I felt compelled to make a video to share this information. Prior to, I could not even take pictures of myself. I would never have imagined myself as a public speaker, but now it's my goal because I know it's my purpose. There is a reason this worked for me, and I know it's because I need to share this information with as many people as possible. I'd actually be extremely interested to see how this diet works postpartum. I felt fine during my pregnancies, and it was always because I didn't eliminate meat. But as soon as I delivered, I was already having the restrictive food thoughts. I really feel like the first half of my life was hell here on earth compared to now. The feeling that I have now is what I was always striving for in the overexercise and the addictions. It's what I've always been seeking. So,
well, that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of information. Yeah. And first of all, I'm very happy that you're doing better, because it sounds like, obviously anybody that's been struggling and suffering, it's always very, difficult to see that, or to imagine what that's like. Just a couple of questions in there. So I'm curious, you said your hemoglobin was down to 4. That's quite low.
Yes.
Was that due to a bleeding episode, or what caused that? Was just pure malnutrition or something like that? Is that what the thought was?
Pure malnutrition.
Okay. Well, that is quite low. And did they say iron deficiency anemia, or what was the thought when they
said iron deficiency anemia? They referred me to an eating disorder specialist at that time, and I remember going to her probably 3 times, because every time I went, she was making me get on a scale, and it wasn't at a point where I was ready for that, and I don't feel that it was not an effective treatment for me. So that's where that stopped.
Did was this? I mean, because you mentioned at some point you tried a vegan diet or something. Was this in the time when you were doing that as well, or?
Yes.
Okay.
That is when I was trying vegan diet. Now, was I following it to what it should be? Probably not. I was eliminating meat, and that's basically what led to the malnutrition.
You mentioned both your parents unfortunately suffered with mental illness, and sadly you lost your father at an early age. Over the years, I mean, I guess it sounds like you can't remember a time when you had more or less normal mental health. I mean, it sounds like it. Obviously you reach trying to exercise, alcohol, all the things that people use to try to self-medicate, I suppose. When you said you'd been to doctors almost every year, what were they doing? What were they providing for you? Was it medications, or how were they trying to treat you?
Absolutely. Medications. I was prescribed antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, which also caused addiction issues. That's another reason I checked myself into rehab. They also I had my medical marijuana card here in Florida. It was a bunch of stuff to just help me numb. I felt like the medications were always a numbing type of feeling. So I knew I had to come off of them.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, I mean, it must be hard. I mean, I've got 4 kids as well, and they're a lot of work. How did you manage to, alcoholism, mental health disorders, and still parent 4 kids? Did you have some help with that, or how did that go?
Yeah. Not really, honestly. My mom came several times to help me when I really started struggling. I was always able to catch myself, and then get back, kind of nurse myself back to health, and then catch myself again. Then it just became entirely too overwhelming. And honestly, I feel like when women give birth, it's really all your trauma being exposed again. So yeah, with each childbirth, honestly, I felt I got worse mentally. And so, yeah, I did have help from my mom. I mean, my husband as well. But yeah, it was very, very difficult.
And I mean, obviously when you're in a when they said you checked in for an eating disorder or you had some of that, what was the advice given you from a dietary side, or did they ever talk to you about diet? I mean, I imagine most of the physicians you saw didn't really concern themselves with nutrition so much, but when you're in there for an eating disorder, they probably had to at least talk about diet a little bit, right?
Yes. And it's interesting because they still try and say oatmeal. I mean, the nutrition advice I was given in rehab was, and that's the first time anyone has ever suggested diet to me, was in rehab last year. They're still pushing oatmeal for breakfast. It's just not what I was comfortable with. It's stuff that I wasn't willing to eat.
Okay. And you weren't willing to eat it because you known that previously it caused problems for you? Is that why? Or
It is. There's restrictive food thoughts with it. I'm not quite sure exactly where they come from, but I know I always thought grain made me gain weight. Pretty good at narrowing down what I can and can't eat in relation to how it's going to affect my body.
Okay, we're back in business. Sorry. You'd mentioned, PTSD as part of a whole bunch of things. Was it trauma? I mean, was there some specific event or a series of events, or was it just a childhood in general, or having your father die at a young age, or are you willing to go into that at all?
Yeah. Really what it stemmed from, I truly believe, is losing my father young. And then my mom really struggled with alcohol up until last year as well. It was a hard time for myself and my sister.
And
because of her condition, yes.
And just speaking, is your sister are you still close with your sister? Do you see her much?
Yes.
Did she have some?
Yes.
Okay.
She lives in South Carolina right now, but yes, I do. I am very close with her.
How did you, at one point, trying to do a vegan diet, was it to lose weight? Was it some belief in that? And then how did you end up trying a carnivore diet? Where did that come from?
So I tried the vegan diet as a way to lose weight. Absolutely. Once I quit basketball, for whatever reason, the restrictive food thoughts started, and my goal was to be skinny. So that's where that came from. And I guess I just heard it and decided to try it. I thought it was healthier. And really, I was just on social media and I saw a video of Mikhaila Peterson saying that the carnivore diet helped her with PTSD thoughts. And she said hers are at bay. And I just thought, I wonder if there's something to this. I have got to try this because nothing else is working. I mean, nothing. There has never been any other relief for me.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, I do wish I knew this sooner. That's for sure. Because, I mean, truly, no one deserves to live that way. And no one should ever have to get to bottom in order to really be heard, because it's not that I wasn't seeking help.
Yeah, unfortunate. Sorry to hear that. So you said you've been going to carnivore now, what, you said something like 2 months, just 2 months or something like that, fairly new, right?
Yes, I started in the beginning of December. So 2 months.
And how soon did you notice a significant difference?
Oh man. I mean, I noticed a difference probably after a week, but really, really probably day 22, I stopped and I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I knew like living in my head was just so different. The thoughts, like I'm able to clear my mind and really go through my thoughts and not react. And it's just been remarkable. Because there's a lot of panic when it comes to eating like sugar or caffeine. Like a cup of coffee, even for me, it sends my body into what feels like complete panic, or diet soda.
So, you said that you saw a fairly quick recovery. What does your diet look like today? Just out of curiosity, because a lot of people have different interpretations of what a carnivore diet is. Is it just meat and water? Are you pretty varied? Do you include other non-animal foods in there? How do you do it?
The only other non-animal foods well, it is, but I do eat an egg in the morning or two. That's the first thing I eat. And then I do work out, and I will eat like a hamburger or piece of steak, or venture into lamb around like 9 in the morning. I mean, really, I just eat when I get hungry, and I don't have these negative thoughts about it. I don't feel the bloating. And I think that's why, because I don't feel like all this bloating that I was feeling when I was eating other foods. But, and then for dinner, I actually get full, and I can fast pretty much probably from like 3 o'clock until I my egg the next morning. Yeah. But it depends throughout the day, but I eat a lot of hamburger meat, a lot of grass-fed ground beef, salt and water.
Yeah. Well, and an egg. I mean, I still consider eggs for animal foods. I mean, they're okay. It's not like eating a piece of cake or something like that. So eggs are generally quite a good piece of nutrition for most people. Yeah. How have you noticed changes in? I mean, your mood, your ability to think, your desire? Because a lot of people will point out, because you mentioned you had struggled with alcoholism for a number of years. A lot of people find that for some reason on a carnivore diet, those cravings tend to disappear along with the food cravings. Is that something you've noticed?
Oh, yes. I don't really, I'll crave sugar once in a while, but not really. Those and alcohol thoughts and stuff are gone. It's not the same as it was. I don't know how much of that to contribute to the ketamine as well, but they're at bay. So that's great. I did want to say another thing that has helped me, and I know your take on supplements. However, the two with the NTFR gene mutation, the two I've noticed with mood that have really helped me are L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine. For some reason, when I eat the all meat and I add those two, the irritation that I felt is really gone.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm like I said, I'm skeptical of many supplements. I think most of them are overpriced and don't do anything, and or right. do very little. And certainly, I think if you're on a human appropriate diet, it doesn't make sense that we would need supplements to live. I mean, no one needed them before 100 years ago. And sure. So, but we have so many people that are so nutrient deprived and so many medical health issues and conditions and medications that there may be for a short period of time some efficacy for that. So I would, maybe perhaps in 6 months you don't need those things. We'll see though. We'll see what happens as those levels tend to build up. So tell me about the kiddos. How are they doing now with mom, like with it now, together?
Yeah, they're thriving. It's really a beautiful thing to see. There just was an emotional disconnect. It just happens when a parent's struggling like that. And it was a lot for me to face. There was a lot of shame there, a lot of guilt, but I knew that I knew I had to, because they deserved better. And now, my daughter is 13 or 14, and she's more involved socially than she was before. she wants to be around me more. So that's just huge. I know my oldest two were struggling when I was, and my son is 12. He also is now thriving. He was definitely having anxiety, having trouble falling asleep and stuff. So I never got to like this, like fall down, like drinking, mess that I think of when I think of alcoholic for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really hard for me to come to terms with the fact that I had a problem too, because I was able to stop for increments of time. And then I would just go back, but it was like I was sucked in for weeks at a time, and then I would be able to stop again. So it was really hard to come to terms with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a concept of the high functioning alcoholic, and I know some of them personally, and it's amazing to see how much they're able to drink and still actually have a career and function. And
it's because my body was metabolizing alcohol different than other people. I mean, really, it gave me, I felt like it was giving me energy. I mean, eventually I would crash, but it felt like it was giving me energy for some reason. And it gave me like this sense of confidence and motivation that I was seeking.
Yeah.
But when I eat meat, it's that times a million. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So steak better than alcohol. Good.
Yes. Steak over alcohol.
That's probably a good thing for a lot of people. And, I think a lot of people don't realize how much alcohol actually can seriously not only ruin your life, but ruin your health at the same time. There's so many things negative it does for you. So are you, now that you've discovered the benefits of eating meat, is the rest of the family starting to eat more meat, or how are you doing that with those guys?
Yes. Oh yeah. I'm trying, and I'm doing it slowly, but I think my husband would really benefit if he did it. And I'm just waiting for him to hop on the bandwagon with me. But, my kids are all for it. They love it. So I got an air fryer, and they're they eat an egg in the morning when I do. I basically try to feed them what I eat.
Yeah. Okay. And they're doing okay with that. Yeah. I mean, it's for most men, it's not hard to convince them to eat a bunch of steaks and red meat and stuff like that. It's
right.
Pretty easy sell for most of us. There's some that have been, what I would say is kind of, I don't know, either brainwashed or scared into thinking it's somehow bad for us.
Right.
You mentioned that, you've been on all these medications. Obviously, they come with side effects. They come with costs. They come with, variable levels of efficacy. Did you ever feel, is this the first time you felt normal in your adult life, basically?
Yes. This is the first time I can ever remember feeling normal. I can't remember ever a time when I felt normal, because even when I was born, I was, born into an addicted home, and it just takes a toll. It just does.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that now I just saw some statistics of something they're estimating something like 1 in 3 adult Americans is now suffering with depression. It was bad, and then post-pandemic, it has gotten even worse, which is not a prescription for a healthy society. Not to mention the individuals, but as a society together. And so, as we and I don't know, as we keep seeing more and more news about we have to cut back on meat to save the planet from cow farts boiling the ocean, as my friend Safety and Animals likes to say. What are you planning on cutting back on your meat consumption to save the planet? And if you were mandated to, or rationed, and some people talking about rationing meat so that you can only have a little bit, what are your thoughts around those types of things?
Well, it's actually mind-blowing that this is even a conversation, to be honest. It feels like they're taking away what we need to get healthy. This is the answer, and now we're going to restrict it more. I'm not sure what I would do, but no, I would not limit my intake on meat ever. I will never change my diet ever again, just because I know what it's like living like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people, the skeptics that might be listening to this, you're only 2 months into this, and you're saying, I'm never going to change. This is the best I've ever felt. A lot of people have said that in the past. This thing has made me great, and then things change. How do you know this is different than another experience you had in life? Because a lot of people go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. Has there been such a profound difference that it is just overwhelming anything else you've done?
Yes, it is a profound difference. I have never felt any relief. The only relief that I felt was temporary and short-lived, given by a substance. This is just my diet, and it's a continuous thing. It's not short-lived. It's just how I feel, and it's more normal. It's not up and down. I mean, I am more mentally clear than I have ever been. I can hear myself think. I didn't realize just how bad I was suffering now that I'm not. It is night and day difference.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I'm glad you found that. And I don't say this to doubt you. I'm just saying, because I see this all the time. I mean, I see so many people that have either mental health issues or addiction issues or other various health issues, and they get really, really better. They don't want to change their diet. And do you still participate with physicians or anything like that since you switched? I mean, it's only been 2 months. I don't know if you've gone back to the doctor yet and said, hey, look at me, I'm doing great, or has that taken place yet?
Yes. I went back last week and I told them that I started the all carnivore diet. Mm-hmm. I think he thought I was kidding at first, because I said, I've always done all vegan and I switched to carnivore, and it was kind of like a laugh or something. And I was like, no, you don't understand. And I started telling him, and he was like, okay, well, we'll see how your cholesterol comes back and this and that. And then, actually it was weird because I've been seeing this doctor for 7 years now. And I got a email from the president this morning. It was just weird, asking for a survey, because I think when I went, I told him I'm still on an antidepressant, and I know now with the MTFR gene mutation, I need to come off of that ASAP. And honestly, it's not doing anything anyway. So it's certainly not creating serotonin like they sold me. So I think all of those things combined, they know I went to rehab last year twice for prescribed medications that came from there. So I'm sure all of those things that are adding up is the reason I'm getting asked to do that. And I don't have any ill feelings for him sticking to his realm. I just feel like this is life and death information. I mean, they can at least give you a little nudge or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the automatic concern was, and I don't know if he knows how much better you are, because you obviously are saying this is the first time in your life you've actually felt like maybe even a normal human being, and
yes.
To say, well, we're just going to see what your cholesterol is. I just got back from a conference where there's some pretty compelling data to suggest that cholesterol may not be the problem we think it is, and hopefully more physicians will start to realize that there's more to the practice of medicine than just worrying about what somebody's cholesterol is, given the overall picture. And you're in a situation where you talk about suicidality and all these things, and you got four kiddos to take care of, and that would be absolutely tragic to say, well, at least your cholesterol was low. It's just kind of crazy,
right?
That we have that type of thing.
Absolutely.
So you said that, you've been from all the way down to 100 pounds to 200 pounds. So you've actually doubled your body weight. So where do you sit now? What is a healthy, you're 5'6", so where are you at now? What's a healthy weight for you?
I weigh exactly 135 right now, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I like from the shoulders up, from the waist up, you look like a pretty normally, well, well-weighing person. How does your, you'd mentioned you played basketball and you've been going to the gym for 4 hours a day, and then you stopped and now you're back to it. How does your body respond now with exercise? Do you feel like it's easier for you to exercise, easier to get stronger? Have you noticed any of that just in the 2 months you've been doing this?
Oh yeah. I noticed I can run longer because I do short sprints to get my heart rate up and then drop it. So I can run a longer stint, and I have been lifting weights. It's just remarkable how much stronger I feel. I just feel stronger, and I don't put like more weight on or whatever. Like I'm not trying to do, trying to bulk up or whatever, but I notice that I can, I have more endurance, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I like I said, you're not the first person I've seen who's noticed their exercise performance has gotten better. I mean, you're still relatively young, in at least in my perspective. So that, 'cause a lot of people will say that, they just don't have as many aches and pains, and their, joints don't hurt as much, or their muscles don't ache as much. Is that any of that, or did you have any issues with that prior?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was holding a lot of my stress and tension in my neck and in this shoulder. And it's actually just your nervous system is blocked. But when I started lifting, just light weights even, it actually loosened it. And I didn't think that would happen for whatever reason. I didn't put those two things together, but lifting really helps. And I got a bad tightness in my chest a lot. If I got panic attacks or whatever. And that is just remarkably better. Yeah,
good to hear. And you said you're still on an antidepressant. Well, let me ask you about the ketamine thing, because I've heard, a lot of people, I used to administer ketamine to kids in burn wards to do dressing change because it causes dissociative, situation where they didn't feel anything, but it didn't suppress the respiration, which is why we use it for that situation. But why did you do ketamine? And it sounds like it was generally maybe a positive thing for you. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. I feel like it really did put my brain back online. I feel like literally my prefrontal cortex was just not online, or the neurons were just not creating pathways. I'm not sure. But I feel like it woke that part of my brain back up. And after that, I started really digging into my health. So I know it was associated with that. The ketamine, it awakened my brain back from being in what I think was survival mode.
I want to go back to the PTSD because a lot of people have issues with this, whether it's women that are survivors of abuse or rape or trauma, or guys in the military that were exposed to horrific things at war, or anyway, there's a lot of reasons we see that. And so how did it manifest itself in to you? I mean, there's a lot of symptoms that go with this, anxieties, poor sleep, just general dysphoria. What were the symptoms that you had? And a lot of people would say there's no way diet could help with that. And, I've seen it help with that quite a bit. But how did it manifest for you? Has diet improved the symptoms that you had that were related to PTSD?
The way I see how my PTSD works is a situation will trigger something that happened that was very unsettling for me in the past. And I will get stuck replaying that in my mind for several days. And I will stay in that same mood for several days, very depressed, can't stop thinking about that in every situation of how I shouldn't feel ashamed for it. And how it wasn't truly my fault, because it wasn't. And it just kept me stuck for several days at a time. But the ketamine did not take that away. The diet took that away. And I noticed that most of they're not voices. I hate saying voices because that sounds more like schizophrenia, but it's just negative beliefs of yourself or that everyone else is thinking these things of you. Those just went away. They just, like, I can walk in a room and talk to people and I'm not thinking about what that person is thinking of me. It's very weird. I know it sounds weird. It sounds probably bizarre, but that's how it works for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, it's good to hear. You mentioned, a couple supplements you were taking. I think you said tyrosine and tryptophan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Are you giving much concern to fat, protein? It sounds like you're just eating an egg and some ground beef or some steak, and that pretty much covers it. Are you worried much about are you adding lots of extra fat, or because some people like to do that? Are you doing any of that stuff?
I am going to. I need to add more fat and more salt. My protein level with this MTFR gene mutation, even though I'm eating all this meat, is still kind of low. I mean, my iron and that's all high, and my hemoglobin or whatever, but the protein is still on the low end. And that's because that enzyme isn't doing what it should. So I do need to add more fat for absorption. And I was going to ask you, I don't know if I should start adding leafy greens or folic acid. Not sure if you're familiar with that mutation, but I've just been doing a little of my own research. I just found out last week that I had it.
Well, it's a very common one. It's something like, I think 40% of Americans have some form of that, or It might even be higher. So it's not uncommon. And so the question is,
okay.
And sometimes you'll see people with lower folate levels on a carnivore diet because there's just not a lot of folate in meat itself. What I typically see is even with a lower folate level, we don't usually see a lot of clinical things, which would be megaloblastic anemia. There's other symptoms like sores in the mouth and things like this. So I haven't really seen that. Certainly liver is a good source of folate if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to avoid the potential gut irritation from the leafy greens, some people have trouble with that. Like I said, I've never been very dogmatic about this. I'm always about do what works for you. So, I would base it on my symptoms and see how I'm doing. If I'm feeling really good, I know there's a comment here about high homocysteine levels, and that there is a relationship between folate and homocysteine, and homocysteine can be a marker of inflammation or heart disease, but it's not cut and dry. There may be other things going on there, so it's hard to say definitively. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, and I want to give you a chance to talk about. You said you're trying to speak more and get this out, and you've got maybe some social media. So would you share those things so people can find out if they want to, just kind of delve into more what you're going with, people particularly with similar backgrounds or struggling with mental health and looking for maybe sort of solutions that might be helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to eventually branch out and be able to help as many people as possible with this because of how profound it has helped me. Yes, I'm on social media. My name is Leigh Ann. It's Healing Leigh is what my is on Instagram, but I don't have anything set up right now, but it's my ultimate goal. I just feel so passionate about how much it's helped me. I just know that it has to be my purpose here. I wouldn't have gone through hell, the depths of hell, to not share this remarkable of information.
Yeah, fair enough. And you said it's Healing Leigh, and it's Leigh. If somebody wants to try to find that. Well, anyway, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I'm glad you found something that has been helping you, and thanks for the kiddo. I'm sure it helps the whole family. So good to hear.
Yes.
Okay, guys, thank you. I've got to run.
Thank you. All right.
We'll see everybody back tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now.
Yeah. Bye.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to CarnivoreDiet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success.